Welcome in to Greenville Grit, Greenville residents in touch on 103.7 WTIB. This is the local show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Ribeyes, Kid Construction, and Greenville Toyota. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Good evening and welcome to Greenville Grit. I'm Terry Williams.
I'm Michael Overton and
I'm Dennis Mitchell.
Dennis, hadn't seen you in a while, man. How you doing?
Yeah, y'all found other people.
Hey,
That's not true. They
found replacements.
They just won't let us put more than 3 at the desk.
Well,
so.
It's good to have you back on. It's been a while because
Welcome.
we really haven't had a discussion of a lot of things going on in the city.
That's right.
We did have Mayor Thomas on 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Something like that.
But in terms of the discussion we usually have, it's been a while. So we had a lot we could talk
In
about.
terms of
today.
an educated discussion.
That's right.
Oh.
Informative.
So for our informative discussion, before we can get started, we have to thank the sponsors that let the show go on. Thank you so much, Greenville Toyota, for your continued support of the show. If you're looking for a new Toyota or Scion vehicle or a new used car, go see Craig Gillis at the Greenville Toyota team. They're across from Fresh Market on Memorial Drive. You can also dial them up at 321-3000 or at greenvilletoyota.com. Ribeye Steakhouse.
Oh, yes. Ate there last week. Very good.
So did it. Fantastic.
Yeah.
We ate there last Thursday night, and myself, and we had great steak, great salad bar, just fantastic atmosphere. I know sometimes Thursday nights they have a band come in, and
Yeah, they did
It
that
was
night, I think, but
they
it
did
was
a
a little
really
bit
good
later.
job. But support them, and they got a location on Fire Tower Road at the corner of Fire Tower and Arlington, as well as in Williamston. We also have the Overton Group Real Estate Professionals serving all of Eastern North Carolina. Commercial real estate leasing and sales, business brokerage, residential brokerage, and property management. So we're going to take our 2-minute commercial break, come back, get with Dennis Mitchell, Terry, and I. We're going to talk about some of the city items from bonds down to budgets. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. I am Michael Overton. I have my co-host here, Terry Williams, and our sit-in co-host, Dennis Mitchell. Dennis, thank you so much for coming back on the show today. We need to talk about some of the most recent items. I feel like we have beat the bond completely up, so we won't spend much time on there. But I have to say, if you haven't had a chance to see the cartoon that the Daily Reflector put out last week on the bond, it was hysterical. And I don't usually see the Daily Reflector do cartoons related to local city government. But for those that didn't have the chance to see it, you had legs of 4 different people. On all 4 of those legs, you had Smiley, Croskery, Blackburn, and Mercer. And then you had a little boy, teeny little thing, rather large around, that had bond written on it. I think they were trying to represent how big the bond was. And Marion's voice beside Marion's leg said, "You can take Greenie along with you," meaning the Greenway. So, again, and I had a breakfast meeting this morning. I'm still just highly irritated about this entire thing because of the way it's been manipulated, that people don't like greenways or not.
Right.
And I've even had discussions with people this week of why wasn't the town commons considered.
Right.
And
Me too.
one of the things I said is it was considered. Matter of fact, behind the roads, the town commons was probably the second most talked about item
I was
in
going to
there.
say we discussed Town Common
lot.
more than a lot of the other items. And we only discussed the Greenway twice.
Okay, so let's talk about that
the
town
whole 6
common.
months,
So why
yeah.
wasn't it put forward? It goes back to this. The bond committee, if you're listening, including you city council members, the bond committee only put forth those items in that initial $10.5 million bond that we felt were the needs of the city.
Immediate
We did
needs.
not put town commons in there because we knew that the $1.5 million to $2 million that the city staff had given us was only going to take care of the design and was not going to build out a substantial part or something that the people could really see
Right.
and that we would get a result from.
Which is the
Which
same
is
reason
no different than this
than the
$750,000 on the
That's
Greenway.
right. Exactly.
It's not going to build the Greenway. You got $4 million sitting aside for a Greenway now. Why do you have to put another $750,000? You've got money and funds sitting everywhere. Why are you going to tax me on $750,000 for something that's not even going to build something? It just chaps me.
But you know what? Our talking points haven't fallen on deaf ears about $4 million sitting nowhere. Have you seen how fast they're starting to build that other leg of the Greenway?
Working on it.
Now.
Well, it was on track, according to
Gary, yeah.
And
I
it was
don't
on track
disagree
to
with
get
that.
started, but what took
when
it
you
so
had,
long? I don't know.
You had general support in that room for the town commons and seeing something done there, but it was not put forward because we did not feel that it would provide enough of an impact.
That's right.
That we wanted to put forward a bond for the people in our first bond that we had passed in 15 years or 14 years. I think 2000 was the last
2004.
one. 2004 or so, 11 years. We wanted it to be a substantial bond for absolute necessity items, and they didn't do that.
That's right.
So we'll only wrap it up. You got another statement?
No,
on that?
that's it. I mean,
I'm telling you, it
kinda
makes me
fired
mad.
up.
It does.
Yeah, I know.
I don't like how
Well-
things are being manipulated, how our
Right.
words are being taken out of text or out of context, because that is not the intent.
Well, and I think, to be quite honest, when they actually get into it, the bond is passed, and they start divvying out the money to the different areas, that $750,000 will probably get moved anyway. I think they're going to realize they can't do very much with
They'll
it.
probably just add it to the vehicle
They'll add it
replacement
to,
fund, I'm
no,
sure.
they can't do that, but they can add it to the items that are already on the question.
Yeah.
So they can move that 750 back to roads or back to something else that's on that list if they don't have enough, because
Terry.
I think they're going to realize they don't have enough.
But you know
they
what?
Can also move
they could also
something
move
back.
something back and make
That's
enough
right.
money to build an extra greenway.
They can.
But at one more point, because somebody clarified this at city council meeting. After city council meeting, council members calling it a pet project, and we all believe that this can be considered pet projects to certain city council members. But what it really is a pork barrel project, and what a pork barrel project is something that you attach to something that is needed,
Right.
that will pass, that doesn't generally have the support of everyone else, so it can pass. And that's what they're doing with this greenway.
So what you're saying is if the Daily Reflector had done the right cartoon, there would have been a cute little piggy with Bond on the side
yeah.
attached to that. But I'm sorry, the cartoon was hysterical.
Yeah, I
The
know.
other thing that the Daily Reflector published this week, and I'm going to give kudos to Janet Storm on a great article. Did you have a chance to read it?
No, I haven't, but
How
I
about
heard
you?
about it.
Yeah, I read it.
Okay, and I know some other people that I heard read it was regards to term limits.
Right.
And the continued push and tabling of the discussion of term limits when they obviously have gotten extremely negative feedback for wanting to extend those term limits. Dennis, what do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything you've seen, everybody, even traditional supporters of the Mercer block, came out strongly and spoken against the term limits. But this goes to one of those things like, where did it come from?
Right.
I mean, no one want to say who it came from, where did it come from, just like the bond, the Greenway. Where did that portion come from? These things are falling out of thin air, and they're just trying to push them and push them and push them. But it's clearly the public doesn't want the Greenville City Council to have 4-year term limits. And we in Greenville like the ability to get rid of people every 2 years if it so pleases us.
That's right. On either side. I mean, it could work to their favor or the other side, and that needs to be looked at. I also heard conversation that they had a meeting, I guess a public hearing type thing about the term limits. Is that not true? I did not go to that meeting. And there was quite a lot of discussion about the city council members not attending there, and they couldn't ask them questions.
I think one city
person
council-
did, maybe.
Councilman Rick Smiley was the only one that showed up to those meetings.
And they weren't real crazy about the answers that they got from him either. So I don't know. I don't know if there'll be another hearing about it.
Well, it's completely selfish, and coming from somebody who's sat on the city council, the only reason you want term limits is because you don't like to run every 2 years. Because campaigning is stressful.
It is.
And another argument I hear is not an argument for me, but some people use that you spend a year doing the work of the city and then another year campaigning. Then to me, then you're not the kind of public servant we need, because you're supposed to make those tough decisions, whether it's 6 months to the election or 2 months to the election.
So does that mean that we're not going to have 3 tax increases this summer, Dennis?
Well, you're probably going to have some tax reductions and backpedaling and moving to the center and all kinds of other stuff going on. You just wait.
Terry, where do you want to go
well,
next?
you know, that I think that probably brings us to budget discussion.
Absolutely.
I think the budget will be presented next week for the vote. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
And I've got a copy of what was the proposed budget, and I'm trying to read through and see what I can find out of what's in here and what's not in here. And it is hard to understand until you really take some time to look through it. But you want to comment on what's coming up next week?
Yeah, I mean,
what do we have to look forward to?
A couple quick points. Well, one thing that I'm very, very concerned about, and this is where cities get into trouble, is city manager made a statement at one point that she's going to fine money to plug holes in the budget. So I'm very concerned about using one-time funding to fund reoccurring expenses. And that will put you further and further in the hole in future budget years. So that's one thing I'm going to watch out for. Another thing, we still got tax increases.
Right.
That's something that we're going to have to look at. Two, there are no increases for public safety in there as well. That's a concern of mine. We still haven't fully funded our body camera initiative and other things going on with our police department and the roads.
Right.
$2.5 million was the magic number that we were told that we needed to maintain our roads, in addition to the bond that we were doing. And my understanding that originally it was $500,000 or $1 million, and now it's up to $2 million.
I only saw $1 million in here.
It's still $1 million in there.
On the printed
I've
material.
not heard anything about that.
I've not heard that it was
still
going
$1
up.
million, and that bothers me.
And no discussion about the ongoing.
Marion Blackburn, Councilwoman Blackburn, was opposed to that $1 million in one of the articles published by the Daily Reflector, because she said it was not a wise use of taxpayer funds.
Listen, you have to take care of your infrastructure first and foremost. And when you get to a point where it's crumbling and you have to invest more dollars into it, then you're starting to make bad financial decisions. And that's the point
But
we're at
already
right
making
now.
bad financial decisions.
Absolutely. And the one thing that bothers me, and of course, is the elephant in the room you don't want to talk about. You want to make sure your staff get raises.
Right.
That staff raise went from 1% to 1.5%, and now they found money to take it at 2%. And here we are still haven't fully funded the maintenance on our roads.
Right.
So it's like this city government, they can find money when it's time for a raise. I've been on the city council and councils before me. I see them when we start talking about a budget, we're like, there's not enough for a raise. They go back and dig. Oh, we found the money for the raise. They always find money for raises, but we're not taking care of our city services, and that's going to be a huge problem with this budget. My biggest problem with this budget is we were on a trajectory with economic development.
Right.
For the last 3 years, we have been putting money in our budget. New money in our budget for economic development. The consultant told us when we started economic development that we were just scratching the surface. This was a preliminary plan. We need to continue with it. There is no new funding for economic development.
We don't even have an economic development
The city
manager now.
We have been 2 months with an economic development director in the city of Greenville. Economic development has gone to the wayside. The city council cares nothing but about greenways.
You got to
and their
keep in
pet
mind
projects.
the leader of the block that you mentioned voted against the formation of the economic development department to begin with.
Absolutely.
So he has absolutely no interest or speed to put this back in place.
But that's how we can take care of our maintenance. That's how we can have
No, you
money
can't.
for all
You
those
raise
those
taxes,
projects.
Dennis.
Well, that's not the right way to do it. That's
It's
how
the
we can
easy way to do it.
That's how we can have money for all of these projects and things that need to be done in the city. We have to grow our base, and you do that through economic development.
So what is going on right now about hiring someone to take Carl Reese's place? Was there not anybody within the department even that could? Is there an interim director right now? Is there anything going
From my
on?
understanding, the city manager is handling economic development.
Well, I don't know
things
how
right now.
she could do that. I don't know how she'd have time.
I don't understand
that was
myself.
the whole idea of having this designated
It's not
department.
just about that, too. Nothing against the city manager, but I think it comes down to the experience level, too, that if that's not her forte, then, she needs to, as quickly as possible, get a qualified person back in that position.
Listen,
I don't know how it's so hard to do.
And Ted Sauls is an excellent candidate to run the police department. I think we're in good hands. But we still don't have a police chief yet.
Right.
These are critical hires right now.
Right.
When we don't have a full-time assistant city
But
manager.
Calvin still blames you guys for all the people leaving to begin with. So had you not ever come in,
we will talk about that. And remind me about that point too. But so we got a lot of stuff going on in our city. We heard the HR discussion that happened about a month ago. We have HR policies that haven't been updated since 1986. Some HR policies are in memo format, and it has been admittedly that those policies, staff does not have access to them.
And I do not know who the lady was that presented them. I'm sure she is nice, but honestly, I could not follow her discussion on TV when she was trying to explain the policies. It was just I cannot tell you right now one thing that she said.
Well, you can't explain what you don't have.
What she doesn't have or she didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if she just wasn't educated enough before she made the presentation, but it was just a farce to me.
Pretty much, it's a mess.
It is a mess.
And I know she's only been HR director for maybe under a year, but she accepted that challenge and she has to get it right.
Yeah.
Councilmember Glover, rightfully so, hammered him over and over again because we've been waiting since 89 for a merit program. The GUC right across the street has a merit program that works great. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right, exactly.
I mean, this is not something that you have to go out there and invent from scratch. There are over 100 cities in the state of North Carolina. Pick one that has a good merit program and copy it.
Right.
You know, we're just playing games. We have a lot of management issues going on in that city, and not having an economic development officer, still operating on an interim police chief. These are critical hires. No full-time assistant city manager. We got a lot of things
They
that need to be
actually
accomplished.
have two openings, aren't they? Trying to hire two.
Yeah, they're trying to hire two,
city
but right
managers?
now we have a part-time one who's very good.
Right.
But we need a full-time. We need to fill these positions, these key positions, in order to start focusing on things that we need to be focusing
Right.
on.
Right, I agree. I just think we've got a lot of issues. Well, I think one thing that really bothers me is if this city council wants to see this bond approved, because regardless of how we feel about the greenways getting put in there, a lot of what's in there has got to be done one way or another. So in order for this bond to pass with our citizens, I just believe the council's got to step up with this budget and show the public that they're going to take care of the money that is spent through the bond to put in new roads by continued maintenance that's been suggested by the Public Works Director. And he knows firsthand what it's going to take and what he can't do without the money. $1 million, well, we already know it doesn't go very far. Obviously, in the whole entire discussion about the bond, the 8.5 or whatever it was, or $5 million was going to go on Arlington, and he needs all this other money for the other roads that need to be done. $1 million is not even going to touch what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
To keep up what work they do with the new bond money. How are they going to maintain it with just $1 million a year?
Well, if you look at it, if you do that $1 million a year, that means at the end of those 2 years, you're going to be $2.5 million, almost $3 million back in the hole.
That's right.
Again, so you're just putting a Band-Aid on something and making it worse.
Well, I also noticed in this budget, and I was trying to read through it some, that it was my understanding that about $500,000 of the Powell bill funds normally goes toward the maintenance part of the roads, but in this budget, that was a little over
I thought it went more towards
300.
administrative.
No, the 1.5 goes toward administrative. They only, am I not right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
half
right.
a million
That's right. You're
dollars
right.
of the Powell bill money goes toward roads. However, in this particular one, it was reduced, I thought, to like 300 and something, which I thought was down. It said Powell bill money, so I don't really understand how that has come down.
That's something that you got to watch. I mean, there is a shell game being played. The Councilmember Smith spoke of it before. The city has a way of putting money this place and that place to make things work. So I mean, that's a question that needs to be brought up.
Yeah, I will find it as we go through. But I was a little concerned about that because that allocation had come down as well, and I didn't understand that when we really need more money. You know.
But I mean, with all this withstanding, I know we sometimes get a lot of details of budgets. The citizens need to understand you have a tax increase that's still in this budget that's going through. No matter how Councilmember Mercer and company try to spin it, they gave you a 2% tax increase. They're going to try with this budget to act like they reducing taxes a penny. So you're still going to have a 1 cent tax increase. And with this bond, one thing that happened the other night is it's no longer 2 cents. It's 2.5 cents.
Right.
They added more money into the roads in order to keep the greenway.
Right.
So now they're going to come to you. They're going to say, okay, we're going to repeal your tax a penny. We're going to come to you in this bond and ask you to raise it 2.5 cents. This council is a tax.
You've got to consider that
council.
the state is also pushing to have a bond on the ballot this November for the state bond, and I don't know if
transportation.
it'll happen or not, but I even heard that the county was considering a possible bond referendum.
Well, something else we haven't really talked about is they'll be doing the revaluation of all our properties in 2016, I believe.
So you hear that? You know what that means, people? Your
something's going to change.
Valuations most likely are not going to be going down next year.
Probably can't. They can't go down. I don't know how they can. I can't know how
Well,
they
yeah, but
can't
you
be
and I are in
adjusted.
this business, and prices are back up.
They are back up some, but not
not
everywhere.
where they were, but they are
and
back
not
up.
everywhere. And so you really do have to wonder how are they going to go and do their appraisal, so to speak, that they supposedly do, and make that come out to the benefit of the homeowner. That's not going to happen.
But you got to consider that the county needs money, so
Oh,
their interest is going to be in trying to bring that additional tax revenue in.
That's right. So the tax rate may not go up, but the values will probably, in a lot of ways,
So
go
that
up.
2.5
Something's
cent?
going to change.
That's nothing compared to what you could see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer on that's going to be, but you couple that conversation with passing the bond and those taxes going up. I think even if the council were to take back a penny, I think eventually they're going to end up having to put it back.
I mean, but you got. I mean, we hate to
It's
start talking about stuff like this, but you got to look at where people are at in their lives. And Calvin Mercer, he's a university professor. You know, he has a comfortable job, and he gets his money regardless. And to them, they have more money to pay for taxes, so they're not. They're looking at, this is nothing for me. We're gonna pass this Greenway, and put a little money in the bank for it. But they're not worrying about the rest of the city. We're still recovering. You know,
Oh, yeah,
things are getting
definitely.
better, but we're not at the point where we're ready to just start throwing away money, and that's what they're doing with this bond.
Well, I don't know how Michael feels like, but I feel like that actually real estate, our showings, and so I think we're in a little bit of a lull right now. Things seem to be a little slower in the last couple of weeks. Now, it's time of year. Sometimes school's getting out. Things slow down a little bit. But I don't think that this city is in anywhere rebounded yet like we really need to see it happen.
Well, and
in
I've
real estate
spoken-
or other things.
I've got a good friend of mine who's an attorney in town that does commercial real estate law. And one of the things we discussed this morning was that for all the towns they represent, which they've got offices in multiple towns across the state, that from what he feels by working here, because he also works in
Right.
Raleigh and in Wilmington and other areas, as well as what he's hearing from the people he works with in his company, is Greenville has been the slowest of the cities to come
to
back.
recover.
Wow.
Yeah. Not that
Wow.
we're not doing good, but we're not doing where we need to be.
Well, I
I don't
think
think
it's
we just haven't bounced back yet completely.
It's a good time
of course,
to bridge.
Some of like Wilmington, was one of the first markets to go down when it went down. It's been one of the first to revive, and they're doing really well. So I'm hoping that will slowly happen.
And we were one of the last ones
We
to
were
go
one of the
down.
last ones to suffer from the turn down, I think. And so now we're seeing it better, but it's just not where we need to be.
I think it's right now is a good time to take our second
think it would be
break.
great.
Yeah, 'cause
So
I
we
got
will
some
take that
gripes.
quick. Yeah, we'll get into
I got
what's
some
your
after
grit
break
today.
gripes.
So we'll come back in 2 minutes, and we'll hear the Dennis's grit.
Grits.
Grits.
Welcome back, people, to the Greenville Grit. We've been having a very lively discussion
Lively.
here
Don't look at me.
about all things city of Greenville, and we're not going to stop now.
Take your visual aid that
We have
Michael gave us.
we have visual aid for the budget. You know, when I was at ECU, we used to have this chant: "Nuts and bolts, nuts and bolts." We got screwed. Every time the referee made a bad call, and here's your visual aid. We have a screw here, and that's what happened to you on the budget. The citizens of Greenville getting screwed. But enough of it being us getting screwed. Let's shift focus
We have a
to
third break, Terry.
Nah, we might need one.
let's shift focus to my grit.
Okay.
A couple Mercer emails. Remind me about the one you said at the very end. You don't remember?
You got me completely
Okay.
lost right now.
Well, I'm gonna go back to the one Calvin Mercer sent out one of his emails talking about how this election is gonna be so different.
Oh, yeah.
Because 2 years ago in the election, that election with that group running as a block changed forever the city of Greenville. So we're probably gonna have to start running as tickets and all this other stuff.
Right.
People, let's not be fooled here. Calvin Mercer single-handedly changed the trajectory of Greenville city elections. He introduced super PACs. He introduced tickets because his people were running together
It
as
was
a
a ticket.
ticket.
They did.
He introduced personal tax. Win at all cost election. Like I said before, Calvin Mercer has opened up Pandora's box, and Pandora has a cousin named Karma.
Oh, Lord.
So get ready for this city council election because it is different now. You have to
It
be
is
prepared
gonna be
for it.
different.
You have to
There's
be
no
prepared
doubt.
for personal tax. And if you want to win the race, you have to do opposition research and at least having your repertoire,
You know what's interesting is
your bag of tricks.
one of the people that left the city, I won't mention their name, but I said, "You leaving?" He said, "Yeah, I can kind of sense 2015 is going to be a bit of an interesting election year."
Oh yeah.
It
Oh yeah.
definitely will be.
And I'm watching this one from the sidelines. Absolutely.
We all
What's your
are.
other? You said the grits with an S. So
Well,
what's
there was
the second
another
one?
the other email you talked about. I can't remember. You said something at the end.
Well, I just think that the emails don't always tell it like it is.
Dr. Spin.
They just don't, and I think that needs to be changed. So
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, the big thing is no matter what happens, our city is not going to move forward unless you have people with vision who know how
That's exactly
to move it forward.
right.
Again, it's not the fault of the people that are there; it's the fault of the people who aren't running. who have that opportunity to put leadership and vision in place to bring economic development and growth back to our city. So
I'll tell you something else. The public does need to show up at these council meetings, and we need to have people up there.
but you're not going to
besides
get them to show up when a
those
council
of
meeting
us.
is 4.5 hours long.
That's true. But what I'm saying is to speak up on economic development and how they feel about where Greenville should be moving forward, and that this council isn't doing that. And they need to come forward and speak up.
Maybe the people in Greenville are smart enough to know that they're not going to be listened to anyway.
Well, the difference will be
This council's not
in November. That's when you can make your difference.
Okay.
You got to get
Well,
out and vote.
We got to wrap our show up. We're down to 20 seconds. So thank you for joining in. Again, catch us on Friday night, 6:30. Saturday morning at 9:30 on Cable 7. You can also catch us up on YouTube by typing in Greenville Grit. Till next time, we'll see you next week. Thank you.